Hey guys, today I'll go over how to beat Apocalyptic Shadow Bananas. Compared to Aventurine, who's more of a single target boss, Bananas is the AoE boss, asking for both high and frequent AoE damage. So it should go without saying that AoE answers are basically mandatory against them. As such, the Herta and Acheron, with their frequently attacking Erudition and Nihility teammates, are Bananas' best counters. The Herta's team has more AoE overall, and she herself has more explosive nukes, making her the top dog out of the two. But both are excellent choices, and if properly invested, can have even enough damage to kill Bananas without breaking them. Rappa appreciates having 6 enemy bars to break, though her stack mechanic is a double-edged sword with this stage, giving her a higher floor but lower ceiling. She and her teammates can break Bananas fairly quickly, but after breaking all 5 Bananas, you still need a bit more AoE before breaking the boss itself, potentially causing Rappa to waste her nukes early. Additionally, only the dino in the middle and the big break bar count as elite level breaks for Rappa's refund, so not getting lucky with TV energy procs on her can result in ult downtime. However, waiting for the next round of breaks guarantees a 10 stack enhanced basic, as breaking just a few more elites breaks everyone, resulting in up to 6 more charge stacks on the crackback. Jingliu, having relatively weak but frequent AoE attacks, especially with Sunday, is a perfect fit for this AoE hit count boss, and of course Lightning Lord can hit pretty hard as well. Aglaea also counts as a pseudo AoE unit with their high speed, plus her joint attacks adding 6 hit counts to the boss instead of the usual 5 from AoE. Eruditions with high hit counts work well as sub or even main DPS if your top options are lacking. Lingsha, Jade, Himeko, and Argenti all fit this description very well, with each of them having unique standout traits. Lingsha provides a sustain bonus and does good super break damage. Jade has great sub DPS and a 50% advanced forward trace. Himeko abuses the many break bars with frequent follow-ups, and every hit applying burn makes her a good Acheron stack generator too. Argenti has the most spammable ults and can even start looping them at 0 AV before the TV's team-wide energy drain. If none of these options are available, Serval can actually do quite well as a main DPS, while both her and Mini Herta can function as batteries for the Herta. Slower clears will prefer Serval, while speedrun clears can better make use of Herta. Welt should really only be run on a sustainless team, but he does get the job done slowly and steadily. Jingliu and DHIL might be able to work as on-element blast DPS, but truthfully I'm not optimistic, especially with the toughness inflation. I have a feeling that they'd be better off fighting Aventurine, especially in Jingliu's case. When thinking about supports, you want good AoE hit frequency and strong buffs, with the former actually taking priority over the latter. Luckily, Tribbie doesn't have to choose, and she is a hard counter to Bananas' mechanics. Remembrance MC is the second hardest counter, though you want to be aware of timing Mem so she does her AoE punch before Mem's support action takes away her turn. Jiaoqiu takes a slight advantage over Pela with his blast skill and stronger buffs, and absolutely busts his team for Acheron since each mob break counts as a turn and adds another Acheron stack. However, Pela's energy regeneration slightly outpaces Jiaoqiu's, so outside of Acheron teams, they are relatively comparable. You can also increase hit frequency by providing your DPS with more turns, which Sunday, Robin, and Bronya excel at, with Sparkle and DD Tingyun doing so to a lesser extent. Robin's single target bonus damage, lack of action herself during her ult, and difficulty maintaining ult on certain teams don't make her an auto pick like she is versus Aventurine, but most teams will still appreciate her presence. Harmony MC and Fugue match very well into Bananas with their respective bounce and blast/AoE attacks, and their ability to support Rappa, plus Lingsha and Himeko if you feel like fighting versus 40% res for some reason, makes them must picks on those teams. Ruan Mei is not included as high because her 50% weakness break efficiency does nothing to help break Bananas. Her attack frequency is inconsistent at best, and Phase 2's big attack straight up ignores her ult's delay. More often than not, she is an active detriment to the team, especially Rappa teams where her res pen is not needed, and you are likely better off bringing Lingsha, Pela, or Jiaoqiu for faster breaks. Other budget options include Asta and Guinaifen, though Asta is mainly for 4-star clears and Guinaifen on budget Acheron teams. Hanya and Silver Wolf are single target debuffers. Don't use them versus this boss. Unlike Aventurine's side, this boss has dangerous combo potential, especially since its Phase 2 big attack cannot be interrupted or delayed, so while no sustain is usually optimal, you might be better off bringing a sustain. Lingsha is by and far away the best, followed by Aventurine. Healers with AoE ults, like Gallagher, Luocha, and Xuan are next up, with Gallagher having a slight edge due to getting 3 attacks per ult turn instead of 2. Huohuo has less frequent attacks and needs to not attack occasionally to maintain her healing, but she's good for the energy, which could offset the TV energy drain. Out of the budget options, Gepard, Lynx, and Natasha are more for sustaining, with Gepard's freezes being mostly useless, Lynx not having any good teammates to use her skill buffs, and Natasha having no offensive buffs whatsoever. Fire Trailblazer and March land the most hits, but their sustain is the most lacking, and running Fire MC over any of the other MC forms is just... why? On to the boss itself. Banana Academics, or Blaze Nana Monkey Trick, is a shared HP boss with 5.54 million HP per phase, 20% more than its last showing 3 months ago. It consists of 5 enemies, and the main boss who you actually want to break. I'll go over the main boss itself since it's easier to explain that way. It only attacks on phase 2, having 100 speed on the first turn and 80 speed afterwards. It has a toughness of 160, or 30 more toughness than before, making it the first instance of a boss gaining toughness in Apocalyptic Shadow. As for its attack, it buffs everyone with 20% attack for 1 turn, then launches an AoE attack that drains 1 SP, 10 energy, and has, I'd want to say, 100% base chance to burn and inflict a 15% slow. Breaking bananas is really weird though. You can't actually hit the main boss directly, so the way you break it is twofold. First, breaking each mob deals about 19 toughness per break and delays them by about 67%. Back then, this was calculated so that 7 mob breaks perfectly broke bananas, but with the toughness increase from 130 to 160, you now need to break 8 plus a bit. In order to break said mobs, you can deplete their toughness the old-fashioned way, or hit them a certain number of times. From left to right, this hit requirement is 3, 5, 8, 4, and 5, which is fine for AoE, awkward for blast, and borderline impossible for a single target, especially since each mob's recorded hit count lowers by 1 every turn it takes. Almost 100% of successful runs will use the hit count method, as the boss mechanics make this matchup near unwinnable for traditional break methods. There's a reason why Firefly and Boothill were omitted from this list, and Ruan Mei was ranked extremely low. If you manage to break all 5 mobs, while they are broken, every enemy you hit will deal 2 toughness to the main boss, regardless of the attack's actual toughness value. All single target will count as 1 hit, all blast will count as 3 hits, and all AoE counts as 5 hits. So yes, an Acheron ult will reduce just as much toughness as a Himeko follow-up. Check the table on the right to see how many hits are needed to break the main boss based on how many mobs you've broken. With all that in mind, there are 2 main strategies to beating this boss. The first is to balance your hits so you can break all bananas together ASAP. This means largely focusing the bulky 8-hit dino in the middle, and otherwise breaking whoever has the most hits left or is about to act. If you have a lot of leftover AoE to capitalize on this pseudo-broken phase, then this is the fastest way to go. The second is to focus on the side enemies, who have a lower hit count and thus are easier to break. It's a bit riskier since more enemies get to attack, but the lower attack requirement overall makes it more accessible to more teams. Timing breaks so that multiple mobs break at the same time also helps, since staggering their recovery means less time when all 5 of them are broken at once. And of course, keep an eye on the main boss during phase 2, since he resets all broken states when he attacks. AS buffs overall are less important for this stage, with the full heal and SP refund on break making sustainless and SP hungry teams easier to run, but not necessarily foolproof. As for the first selectable buff, it's meant for hypercarry teams running supports like Sunday and Tingyun, but unless you're running basic or follow-up users like Aglaea and Yuan, the third selectable buff is pretty close anyways. The second selectable buff is break-oriented, though Rappa is realistically the only break DPS that can effectively capitalize off of it. The third buff is the most general, as most AoE units rely on their skills and ults, with the Herta being the strongest example of such a unit. Okay, now that we know how to handle this fight, let's figure out how to survive it. All mobs start off angry and provide small buffs when broken. The leftmost alarm clock has 132 speed and starts each phase advanced 50%. When angry, he advances all of their enemies by 50%. When broken, he will instead advance your whole team by 20%, or an S3 GDD's worth. And when recovering, he'll do a single target punch. Both TVs have 145.2 speed, but the second leftmost TV starts 100% advanced, while the rightmost TV starts at normal speed. When angry, they will deal an AoE attack with 5 energy drain, and when broken, they will each give 20% max energy to a random ally. They do not attack when recovering. The middle dino has 158.4 speed and starts each phase delayed by 50%. When angry, they inflict an AoE attack, followed by a blast attack, which have a respective 100% and 80% base chance to burn. When broken, they will give 10% attack to the whole team, and when recovering, they will do just the blast attack. All birds and attack buffs, including the one from the main boss, each stack up to 3 times and last for 3 turns. The rightmost gumball machine has 211.2 speed and starts each phase delayed by 100%. When angry, they drain 1 SP and refund 2 SP when broken. When recovering, they do a single target headbutt. And yeah, that's about it for the boss. Keep track of these debuffs and buffs, as they might be very detrimental or helpful to your team. Finally, some closing thoughts for this Apocalyptic Shadow rotation overall. I think it's pretty cool, especially since it looks intimidating at first, with there being no action advance or alt refresh on break, plus a relative lack of elemental diversity. However, the ability to run Sustainless, plus the single target AoE split, means that clearing becomes much easier on average. Off element is even doable since most toughness damage isn't restricted to being on element, as proven by the plethora of Sela clears versus Aventurine. Both fights also rely heavily on playing to their mechanics over raw breaking or damage potential, meaning that brute force loses to playing smart, which I think is how Apocalyptic Shadow should be. And well, I thought it'd be impossible for Zero Cyclers, but nope, turns out it is very doable with the right DPS. And well, it's kind of rough for Firefly. This shouldn't affect the majority of Firefly mains who have her E2, but at E0 this is easily her worst Apocalyptic Shadow yet. Seems like Huohuo truly is moving away from the break meta. With all that said though, hope this video helped shed some insight on this boss. Good luck with your clears!